all arrived in the here and in the now. We're solid, we're free. In the ultimate we dwell. So we thought to honor the life and death of Venerable Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh this evening. I know for a fact that a few of us have been to one of his many Buddhist monasteries up in the mountains of Escondido that was established years ago. That is such a beautiful practice center that we can visit and visit now again, even during this time of Corona. It's been reopened. And if you don't know of him or you have not been to the center, there will be opportunities to practice in accordance with the way that he taught this evening, just to get a flavor of his beautiful spirit. And as he always said, if you want to know what happens when you die, look at what's happening right now within you, how we're constantly changing, how all the processes within us are changing, how nothing ever remains the same. So he encouraged us to look deeply within ourselves now to see what happens at the time of the ultimate transition of death. And it's wonderful to know that he died, that he transitioned in a peaceful way. And some of you I know have been watching the ceremonies for a few days now since his passing, since his transitioning. That's been live streamed by the kindness of the monastics and lay practitioners that are involved in making this possible to be watched worldwide. So I don't know if you have had a chance to watch, but if you go to plumvillage.org every day, there's an update of the different ceremonies that are taking place. Today, for example, there was an opportunity to take the 5 mindfulness trainings. That is basically a practice that brings together the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path of the Buddha. It's a very beautiful recitation that we can commit to in terms of ethical behavior for ourselves and in the world. And I believe that tomorrow also, through a live stream at Deer Park here in Escondido, there will be an offering by the monastics of the 14 mindfulness training, which is a larger extension of the trainings offered. So just wanted to acknowledge for all of us, and I know that you're all aware, or if you're not, Venerable Master Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings were very profound and yet very simple. And just taking delight in the way he taught about drinking a cup of tea, and that when you drink a cup of tea, just to be present to drinking the cup of tea without any other distractions, and how he encouraged us to, when brushing our teeth, just to brush our teeth. When talking to a loved one, just bringing our full attention to talking to that loved one. And we have a clip of him from an interview with Oprah several years ago, I think actually 10 years ago when he was 85, and in which he talked about 4 mantras that he developed. So we're going to show those mantras. But we wanted to, at this point, just show a short video clip from that same interview with Oprah, just about his life that he led. It's very short, but just to give you a flavor in case you have never seen the man, the great man, or if you've never heard more about the background of his life story. So we're just going to go ahead and, out of the kindness of Zeev's technological skills that I don't have, we're going to just show this clip in a moment when Zeev's ready. So just beginning in that way. And first of all, also to welcome all
train yourself to
I'm so glad we're here together tonight, especially. Thank you.
At 85, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat. Okay. At 8.
We can all take a breath. That's what Thay would encourage us to do. So maybe we'll take several of those. Just waiting for the video, and maybe Z can take a breath as well.
I haven't mastered the screen share on my new computer. The Zoom version is slightly different, and I'm not. I think this is it. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Except it's not showing me the right thing. There. Okay.
Thank you.
Influential spiritual leaders of our time, active on the world stage. In the early 60s. Sorry, I'm going to start from the beginning. At 85, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh is one of the most influential spiritual leaders of our time. Thich Nhat Hanh, or Thay as his students call him, Thay means teacher, is author of more than 100 books. A copy of his Living Buddha, Living Christ never leaves my bedside. His spiritual journey began at the early age of 7, when he felt the calling to become a monk. But this monastic has always been active on the world stage. In the early 60s, horrified by the escalating civil war in Vietnam, Thay spearheaded one of the great nonviolent resistance movements of the 20th century. Martin Luther King Jr. took notice and spoke out against the Vietnam War for the first time at Nhat Hanh's urging, and later nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1982, Thay established a monastery and retreat center in France, where thousands of followers still flock every year. He lives there today, devoting his life to mindful meditation, helping people to be passionately present in the here and now. What a treat it was to.
So thank you for making that happen, Z. I know that I could have not done that, so thank you so much. And I thought I'd just share a few other things about Thay that I found out about, maybe even just in the last several hours or last 24 hours. And one of them is that at age 7, I don't know if it was in his family home or somewhere else in Vietnam, but he saw at age 7 a picture of the Buddha, and the serenity of the Buddha and the peace that he was emanating inspired him, even at that young age, to become a monk, a Buddhist monk. So, which he then made happen at age 16, when he was ordained as a teenager at a monastery in Vietnam. And the touching thing is that he could spend the last several years of his life at the temple in Vietnam, where he was actually ordained as a Buddhist monk. And some of you may know that because he was a peace activist and because he came to the West, to America, to Europe, to propagate for peace in Vietnam and to end the hostilities, when he started speaking up about that more fervently in 1966, he was actually exiled and not allowed to return to Vietnam. He was no longer allowed to come either into North or South Vietnam. He was basically banned by both parts of Vietnam to re-enter the country. And that was really heartbreaking for him. I know that that was very difficult, and also difficult to hear about so many deaths. He actually founded a youth organization in the early 60s, grassroots social services organization that basically had about 10,000 volunteers, 10,000 young men and women that engaged in grassroots work. And as he traveled in the West and began teaching in the West, he often heard word about village where the youth that he sent there that were bombed and basically got killed. And I know that he went through many years of deep heartbreak and deep meditation on those losses. It's kind of extraordinary. He came to America for the first time in 1961, and he actually was a researcher and taught contemplative religions at the University of Princeton. And then in the following year, I believe, he also taught at the University of Columbia, where he more deeply researched Buddhist texts and became a lecturer of Buddhism. So he made quite really established himself early on. And then when he was no longer allowed to return to Vietnam, he started establishing practice centers in France and the US. There's actually an Institute of Applied Buddhism in Germany. And Plum Village, the practice center in France, is actually the largest engaged Buddhism center around the world, with more than 200 monastics that live there and more than 10,000 people that visit there every year. So it's quite the center. And I really would like to urge you, if you have not been to Deer Park in Escondido, to go, because the presence of the monastics, their joyful presence, and the walking meditation that they conduct outside in nature and silence on their days of mindfulness is quite extraordinary. So really encourage you to visit the Deer Park website as well. So yeah, and later on in the second hour, we have a chance to all share how we have been impacted by Thay, and to reflect on a poem that we're going to read together in the second hour. And so there will be opportunities for all of us to share, not just me. So, yeah. And we would like to go ahead now. And so again, calling on Z to show another aspect of the interview with Oprah that was conducted with Thich Nhat Hanh 10 years ago. And this is the part where I don't think it begins right away with the 4 mantras, but it's going to be where he speaks about these 4 mantras. And they're just really, really beautiful. So we wanted to share them with you this evening. So we're going to do that now.
The nature of Buddhism, as I understand, is to believe that we are all pure and radiant at our core. And yet we see around us so much evidence that people are not acting out of a sense of purity and radiance. How do we reconcile that?
Well, happiness and suffering, they support each other. They inter-are.
They inter-are.
Inter-are. To be is to interbe. It's like the left and the right. If the left is not there, the right cannot be there. Mm-hmm. So the same thing is true with suffering and happiness. Mm-hmm. And good and evil, they inter-are also. In every one of us, there are good seeds and there are bad seeds.
And that's just the nature of being human.
Yeah. There is the lotus that grow out of the mud. We need the mud in order to make the lotus. You cannot grow lotus on marble. You have to grow it on the mud. So suffering is the kind of mud that we must be able to use in order to grow the flower of understanding and love.
Do you meditate every single day?
Not only every day, but every moment. While drinking, while talking, while writing, while watering our garden. It's always possible to practice living in the here and the now. That's what we call meditation.
But do you ever sit silent with yourself and
yes, we sit,
recite a mantra or not recite a mantra?
We sit alone, we sit together.
Mm-hmm. The more people you sit with, the better. Oh, right.
Yeah, the collective energy is very, very helpful. I like to talk about the mantras that you just mentioned. The first mantra is darling, I'm here for you. When you love someone, the best thing you can offer him or her is your presence. How can you love if you are not there?
It's a lovely mantra. Darling, I'm here for you.
And you look into his eyes and you say, darling, you know something? I'm here for you. You offer him or her your presence. And your true presence. You are not preoccupied with the past or the future, your project. You are for your beloved one. The second mantra is, darling, I know you are there. And I am so happy. Because you are truly there, you recognize the presence of your beloved one as something very precious. And you use your mindfulness to recognize that, embrace your beloved one with mindfulness, and she will bloom like a flower. To be loved means to be recognized as existing. And these two mantras can bring happiness right away. Even if your beloved one is not there, you can use your telephone and practice the mantra.
Darling, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And darling, I know you're there.
The third mantra is what you practice when your beloved one suffers. Darling, I know you suffer. That is why I'm here for you. Before you do something to help her, to help him, your presence already can bring some relief.
And the acknowledgement of the suffering or the hurting. Yes.
And the fourth mantra is a little bit more difficult. And that is when you suffer. And you believe that your suffering has been caused by your beloved one. So you suffer so deeply. And you prefer to go to your room and close the door and suffer alone.
Yes.
You get hurt. And you want to punish him or her for having made you suffer.
Yes.
And the mantra is to overcome that. The mantra is, darling, I suffer. I am trying my best to practice. Please help me. You go to him, you go to her and practice that. And if you can bring yourself to say that mantra, you suffer less right away.
Darling, I suffer. Please help me.
Please help me.
It just really touched me, so I wanted to share that with you all. And I thought about the mantras and how they cannot just apply it with loved ones, obviously, although it might take a certain trust to be able to offer the last one in particular. However, I feel that they can be used really with anyone, with friends, with family, anyone where there might be a need for that. And I was thinking earlier today, even with oneself, darling, I'm here for you in the time of suffering. I thought, and we can share them with you. If you would like for us to share them, we can write them out and put them in an email. But I thought those are really wonderful ways to practice with oneself, with a loved one, and others as well. So, yeah, here we are. And I thought it would be really lovely to offer a movement meditation in the style of Thich Nhat Hanh's community this evening. So Z has graciously agreed to conduct that for us. If for any reason you're not wanting to walk tonight, perhaps you can just sit silently and still just listen to the instruction or just be with us in spirit. It's just nice to have a movement as part of the practice as well. And often a movement can also just simply mean that maybe you lift your hands and you place them back down if you're in a seated position. There's ways that you can experiment of still moving in some way that's rhythmic, that can allow you to still participate in the movement meditation. However, if you just want to sit in stillness, that's perfectly fine. So please don't feel pressure to participate. If you do wish to participate, I'm just going to turn it over now to Z to lead that part of the evening. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you'll see how the walking meditation that I'm going to share is very possible to be done as a sitting meditation as well, if you're not able to walk or you don't wish to walk. And I like Bettina's idea with the hands. And if you are going to use your hands for some reason, you can use them in lieu of steps, just on your lap, just to practice like you're stepping with your hands. So I'm going to just share a little bit about what Thay, as he's known. Thay means teacher, and that's how everybody referred to him. All his students and fellow monastics called him Thay. And he says that the walking meditation is a wonderful way to learn how to live deeply every moment we're alive. Every step brings you home to the here and now. Every step brings you home to the here and now. You're walking, but you have already arrived. Where have you arrived? In the here and now. He says we should learn how to walk like a free person, free from the past, the future, our projects, anger. Walking like that can bring us healing, nourishment, and joy. Bring attention to the soles of your feet. Touch the ground with mindfulness as if you're kissing the earth. Touch the ground with mindfulness as if you're kissing the earth. Invest 100% of your mind and body into making that step. So the process that we'll do, and you can come to stand and I'll talk us through it. It's very simple. Sitting, just stay sitting. You'll see how it is conducive to that. So he has us combining our breath with our steps and a mantra. So if you're sitting, you just do the breath and the mantra and maybe the hands. So you take one in breath and you take one step and say silently, I have arrived. And he says it's not a declaration, it's a realization. I have arrived. I'm here. I've arrived. And then you exhale and you take the next step and you silently say, I am home. So it's a slow walk, obviously, because it's as slow as your breath. And so it's just inhale, I have arrived. Exhale, step again, I am home. However, if you make a step, but you have not arrived 100%, you recognize I'm stepping and I'm not fully in the here and now. He says, don't take another step. Stay in that position until you truly arrive before you make another step. So I think that's enough instruction, and we'll practice like that for about 10 minutes, and I'll ring the bell when it's time to return.
We have a period of sitting meditation or lying down meditation or standing meditation, in whatever way you can be in stillness for the next 25 minutes or so. And Thich Nhat Hanh was very fond of one of the discourses of the Buddha. He even wrote a book about it. Breathe, You Are Alive is one of the many books that he published. I think he wrote about 100 books in total. And the teaching, you all know, or most of you know, that he was very fond of the breath. And he wrote this book on the teachings of the Buddha that appear in what is in the Pali called the Anapanasati. Z, you can help me. Anapanasati, I'm getting it wrong, sutta.
Anapanasati.
Anapanasati Sutta, which is the discourse on mindfulness of breathing that the Buddha spoke about. So I wanted to guide us through the steps that actually pertain to the breath in particular. And so just as you're settling in, just really take a moment to settle in, to arrive home into your body. And let yourself sit in a way that allows you to stay alert and yet be relaxed at the same time, whatever that means to you, or however that manifests to you and in you. And as you're breathing in, simply be aware that you're breathing in. Breathing out, be aware that you're breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. And as you're breathing in next time, simply notice whether the breath is relatively short or long. And as you're breathing out, simply noticing whether the breath appears to be short or long. Breathing in, breathing out. And you can become aware of the whole body of the breath, from the beginning to the middle to the end of the in-breath, and aware of the beginning, the middle, the end of the out-breath. Breathing in, aware of the whole breath body. Breathing out, aware of the whole breath body. You can also be aware of the breath in the body, in the whole body. Breathing in, breathing out. And as you're breathing in and out, see if you can also relax the body with the in-breath and with the out-breath. Breathing in, you relax the body. Breathing out, you relax the body. Breathing in, breathing out. And as you continue to focus on your breathing in this way, simply noticing the in-breath and the out-breath, and know that you're breathing in and you're breathing out. See if you can do so with a real sense of how precious, how sweet this breath is. How there's really nothing ever more important than this next breath. Because it reminds us that we are alive in this moment. So please deeply enjoy these next several breaths. Nothing to do or undo. Simply breathing in this moment. As you stay meditating with your eyes still closed and focusing in on the breath, I would like to share a piece of writing by my dear spiritual friend, Cynthia Rich, whom some of you know. She wrote these things about the breath. It would appear that the awareness of our breathing in daily life would be a distraction. And yet it seems quite the opposite. It makes it easier to concentrate on what is before us or of true value to us. It's as if it is a distraction only to the monkey mind, not to whatever deserves to be attended to. A continual peripheral awareness of breathing silences the mind, or at least places it where it belongs, in a secondary position to mindful presence, is calming, possibly because it sets everything else in perspective. The arising and ceasing of our breath reminds us of the overriding importance of the simple fact that this life force is keeping us alive, and that none of our anxieties and regrets or preoccupations have a comparable value or reality. Its rhythmic rise and fall replicates the security of the womb, assures us that we never need to feel that we're completely wasting our time standing in line or waiting on the phone, because whatever else is going on, we're always doing the most important thing. The big news always and everywhere should be that we are alive, as it affirms and prioritizes the value of our simple being. It calms any flutterings of anxiety about what we should do next, or we should do. It silences all shoulds, silences and calms restlessness, provides a reminder of impermanence and how its instability can be a trustworthy place to rest our spirits. Teaches us to be at peace with surrender, since the most important thing that we do in our lives is done without our conscious control, and is a continuous or recurring reminder that the inner life is more important than and determines the life outside. See if you can feel every breath for this last minute of our silent meditation together. Thank you, dear Sangha. We will have a very special guest in our second hour. We'll have Thich Nhat Hanh come and read one of his poems to us. And we will then have an interpretation by him, read by Z, about the poem. And we will recite it together afterwards, and then have a sharing about the poem and anything else that's in your heart that you would like to share about your practice, about Thich Nhat Hanh, about life. So we'll see you in 5 minutes at 7:40. Thank you. Welcome back. And I just wanted to actually say that for our sharing this evening, we will be focusing on the poem. I don't think there will be enough time to do the usual sharing, but certainly about Thich Nhat Hanh's poem, and anything, any feelings or any thoughts that might come up that you wish to share. So we're going to first invite him in to read the poem for us, and then Z is going to read actually Thich Nhat Hanh's explanation of how the poem came into being, and then we're going to read it together, taking turns reading it. So sort of the same style as we would in our contemplation on the verses of the Faith Mind when we used to recite it in the beginning. So we'll go ahead and listen to Thay share his poem now.
In order to laugh and to cry, to fear, please call me by my true.
Sorry, I don't know why it's coming up not from the beginning. It's saying it's the beginning, but let me try again.
Please call me by my true names. Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply. Every second I am arriving. To be a bud on a spring branch. To be a tiny bird with still fragile wings. Learning to sing in my new nest. To be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower. To be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am a mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river. And I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am a frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond. And I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the char in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. And I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself in the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands. And I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true name, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once. So I can see that my joy and my pain are one. Please call me by my true name, so I can wake up, and the door of my heart could be left open, the door of compassion. Please call me by my true name.
Thich Nhat Hanh tells the story of the poem. After the Vietnam War, many people wrote to us in Plum Village, that's his monastery in France. We received hundreds of letters each week from the refugee camps in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines, hundreds each week. It was very painful to read them, but we had to be in contact. We tried our best to help, but the suffering was enormous, and sometimes we were discouraged. It is said that half the boat people fleeing Vietnam died in the ocean. Only half arrived at the shores of Southeast Asia. There are many young girls, boat people, who were raped by sea pirates. Even though the United Nations and many countries tried to help the government of Thailand prevent that kind of piracy, sea pirates continued to inflict much suffering on the refugees. One day we received a letter telling us about a young girl on a small boat who was raped by a Thai pirate. She was only 12, and she jumped into the ocean and drowned herself. When you first learn of something like that, you get angry at the pirate. You naturally take the side of the girl. As you look more deeply, you will see it differently. If you take the side of the little girl, then it is easy. You only have to take a gun and shoot the pirate. But we can't do that. In my meditation, I saw that if I had been born in the village of the pirate and raised in the same conditions as he was, I would now be the pirate. There was a great likelihood that I would become a pirate. I can't condemn myself so easily. In my meditation, I saw that many babies are born along the Gulf of Siam, hundreds every day. And if we educators, social workers, politicians, and others do not do something about the situation, in 25 years, a number of them will become sea pirates. That is certain. If you or I were born today in those fishing villages, we might become sea pirates in 25 years. If you take a gun and shoot the pirate, you shoot all of us, because all of us are to some extent responsible for this state of affairs. After a long meditation, I wrote this poem. In it, there are three people: the 12-year-old girl, the pirate, and me. Can we look at each other and recognize ourselves in each other? The title of the poem is Please Call Me by My True Names, because I have so many names. When I hear one of these names, I have to say yes. So I'm going to post the poem, and let's all take turns reading. We'll read 2 paragraphs. Some are just very short, some are quite long. It doesn't matter Just read 2 and it'll get us right to the end perfectly. We'll go in order of our first name alphabetically. And I'll share it now.
Please call me by my true names. Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply, every second I am arriving, to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone.
I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive.
I am the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river. And I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond. And I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog.
Lauren, hold on, you're muted. Start from the beginning. Thank you.
I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart, not yet capable of seeing and loving.
I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the 4 oceans.
Please call me by my true names so I can hear all my cries and my laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. So unlike how we've done it with the verses on the faith mind, where we go through line by line and kind of dissect it, and we'll just open it to whatever has been stirred in you and whatever you feel like sharing.
What came to me when I read it yesterday and again today is so much of the teaching of Jesus when he says, "Thee who can," something about throwing the first stone. I haven't read the Bible in a while, but it reminds me so much of that. It's just such a deep teaching about how easy it is to judge someone else, or how easy it is to judge a certain behavior or situation or a terrible act in the world, and to how this path, at least for me, really reminds me, when I can remember, that all of that resides in myself as well. All the good and all the bad. And I think it's so beautifully expressed in this poem when, or rather in the interpretation, the explanation that Z read, that Thich Nhat Hanh realized that if he had been born into those same circumstances, into those same villages, that he might have very likely become that sea pirate. And I think that teaching is not to condone or to say, oh, well, it just was bound to happen. And it's not to excuse the behavior, but I think it just really deepens our understanding that those things are possible because the seeds of that reside in all of us, and whatever the given circumstances of our life and how we grew up, might lead to certain outcomes. And I feel one of the most compassion places that the Buddha showed in his lifetime is there's stories in the teachings, in the sutras, in the scriptures, how the Buddha invited even murderers into his Sangha and allowed them to practice with the Sangha and to reform their way of life. And I think that is just an act of utter compassion and really a belief in the goodness of the human heart and the possibility to transform. And I think that's just so beautiful. It moves me very deeply.
In 1980 something, I did a meditation retreat in a 3-month retreat in Barrie at Insight Meditation Society, and there was this poem was posted in a kind of a lone hallway right in the middle, going down a flight of stairs, and it was kind of a pretty lonely hallway. There was often no one there, and I would sit and I would read this poem really, really often. I just absolutely love this poem. It really resonated with me, and I think it resonated with me because I had spent so much of my life, my early years, kind of in self-loathing, thinking that perhaps I wasn't a good person because I had dark thoughts and at times, and I feel like this poem kind of opened me up to the idea that we can have both light and darkness in us, and that is part of the whole of what life is about. And I can't express like how much, for some reason, comfort this poem gave me every time I would read it. And if I was kind of down or sad or whatever, I would go and I would sit in that on the stairwell and I would read it. And I remember when I was doing for about a year and a half, I was doing my own meditation group, and I remember sharing this poem as part of this. And one of the people that were there that night were like, "Wow, this is really depressing." And it was the first time I actually thought of it as possibly depressing, because I don't know, for some reason it brought me light. I'm not sure why, but and I love the title of the poem, Call Me by My True Names, because I think that we all have it in us to be all of that, and that is what makes us whole. And I actually really liked the interpretation, because I've never read the interpretation. So, but anyway, thank you.
At the risk of stealing Bruce's potentially anticipated share, I'm going to say that I think that the reason why it's not depressing and why it's comforting is because it speaks to how we're all connected. And it's so easy to villainize the sea pirate and the snake and the bird and the Politburo and all of it, and I think maybe the reason why we're so quick to vilify those kinds of forces is because we are desperate to push away those energies that live within ourselves and not embrace them, that they scare us and and we don't want to believe that we're capable of those kinds of things. So anybody on the outside that reminds us of a piece of us on the inside that we don't like, we make as an other, even though the exact opposite is what's happening. They're reflecting a truth to us that makes them like us. And I think when we remember that, we not only can more easily connect with all beings, but for me, the poem is such a doorway into compassion and to understand, there but for the grace of God go I. I don't know what causes and conditions have put somebody else in a position to do the kinds of things that they do, but I know that it was causes and conditions. And I am fortunate that I did not live with those same causes and conditions. And that doesn't mean that I have to have pity on that person, but I'm sure that if they could choose how to be in the world and if they could choose the circumstances that formed them, they would not choose those. And how unfortunate to be cultivated in that way as to become a sea pirate.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm not unfamiliar with Thich Nhat Hanh, but I had not heard that before, that poem. And it just struck me there's such a strength and calm in it. remind me of just the waves of the ocean. I was down by the ocean today, and that kind of strength and calm that today by the ocean, I was saying, this is in my soul too. You know, I can play with my emotions and my little stories and get attached to them, but this is in my soul as well. And the poem also, part of the strength, I think, to write that is someone who's been face to face with hate within themselves. And that's what was real powerful for me, because until I couldn't begin to say anything like that, I could not write that poem, though I love it. But I can get closer to writing it the more I recognize I am the sea pirate. And I am the victim too. I am the perpetrator. I am the victim in this place of interbeing. As soon as I started to become aware of kind of all the so-called privilege that all of us have in this world, it's built on a lot of it's the sea pirate. So I found one of the things that was I loved about the poem was there was just a strength in it. And it's a strength from honesty. And I also, to me, it spoke, and this is kind of what Z was talking about, a belonging. I belong, and every part of me belongs, even the part that I hate, even the sea pirate, even the young child that's violated. So I think that's about just so thankful that this was brought up.
I think when I hear the Dalai Lama say that he achieves compassion for instance, the Chinese who are killing his people and have robbed him of his homeland, he says that we have all been each other's mother at one time or another, in one life or another. And he said that's the thought that he holds, that he could be the mother of that person, or that person could be his mother, because he had such a deep love for his mother, from whom he was parted early. So I think when I first hear the lovely phrase, we're all one, we're all truly one, it sounds wonderful, and we get a happy and loving feeling of connectedness. But that also means we're one with everything, whether we like it or not. And I think this was a very gentle, beautiful, sweet way of trying to face that with compassion for ourselves, not going, oh my God, that's in me too. It's not that, it's a recognition and an honoring of all that we are. And we're not acting on that right now, thank goodness, but as he noted, given any circumstances, we can't say we never would. So I think I'll just never forget the first time I saw him at Deer Park. I got out of my car and I was looking out over the landscape, which is really quite beautiful, even in the desert environment, it's lovely. And I saw this impossibly tiny little man, or little person, little figure, walking so slowly like a snail. You know, like when the snail lays down its trail, it just glides along so smoothly and slowly. And all these monks, his retinue behind him, you know, as if anything happened to him, they would be right there to catch him or help him in any way. just all this loving attention focused on him. But he seemed oblivious to that to me. He was just one with the earth, yet moving on it. Really, I've never seen anything quite like that. And just when he came around, he was going around a garden, so when he came around so his face could be seen, it was just radiant. Just his face, just radiant. So I just think he's one of those bodhisattvas that comes to us just full of love and compassion, and such a wonderful teacher because of that. I've been reading him for years, and I'm sorry it is passing, but I have to say that he changed the world. Not many people can do that, even with tiny little hand oozing around this garden. But he changed the world much for the better, I think.
Yeah, I think Thich Nhat Hanh was probably the first Buddhist teacher that whose writings I read, and probably my first entree into Buddhism was through him. And he was at Balboa Park and did a walking meditation, and then kind of a Q&A. Actually, yeah, I think we did a silent meal, and then there was a Q&A. It was in the, and I think it was in the Oregon Pavilion or something. It was a very big venue. And I was there, and in that same trip, I saw him in a local temple. What draws me to him so much is his how gentle his spirit is, and how amazingly present each movement he makes. I don't know how you reach that level of presence, honestly. It's dumbfounding. And I also really appreciate his humor. If you've heard him speak, where he just kind of he'll laugh when he's telling an anecdote, and it's really sweet. He's just a sweet presence. I remember that poem from back in that time. I haven't revisited it. This is the first time I've heard it since way back, I don't know, late 90s or something, but it's a good poem. I went to a memorial yesterday for a colleague who passed away suddenly at the age of 42, and he's married with a toddler. And he's a bicyclist. I don't know, forgive me if I've already told the story, but anyway, he's a bicyclist, and you can see his ghost bike on Camino del Rio South. It's kind of across from the temple there. That it's what's it called? Scottish Rite Temple. And yeah, everyone at the funeral, at the celebration of life, was talking about how Matt was always so present, and always found humor in really simple things. And anyway, just kind of linking this to the poem is the woman who struck him and caused his death was not drinking. She was not on drugs. She was a 25-year-old. She was driving her car at night, and I don't know how they know this, but they said she looked at her cell phone. She drifted over and, and that was that. And it was just, yeah, who among us hasn't glanced at our cell phone? I mean, maybe, I bet you maybe Z and Bettina haven't, but but I don't know. I have when I'm driving, you see whatever, it's just distracted driving, whether you're looking sorry, if you're just looking for directions or whatever. Anyway, it just, we're all those people. And Matt was too, because I remember Matt talking when he was alive about like checking his phone and how this was when he was younger. He said, oh, I can look at it without, I put it up really high. I can look at it without losing my eye on the road, And it's just, it's just two tragedies. And I don't know, I guess, I've been feeling a lot of sorrow over Matt's loss and a lot. And I'm really feeling now some sorrow for the young woman. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Elaine. And maybe we can take a moment to really allow that in, or help you allow that in with our presence. To feel all that you need to feel around it in this moment. It's so precious to really be part of a group where we can practice deep listening and deep reflection with one another. To feel safe enough to share in these ways that we share with one another. And we have about 5 or 6 minutes, so if your heart is moving you to share a bit more about Thich Nhat Hanh, or about the poem that we've read, something that it reminded you of, like Elaine shared, feel free, or we can just sit in silence until someone just feels called to share a bit more. And it's okay just to spend the time in silence. What preciousness. We don't get that in our normal day. So, but don't be shy to share if your heart moves you to do so.
One of my favorite Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's probably the first I read, and I'm sure I've read it more than once, is Living Buddha, Living Christ. Because I come from the Christian tradition, and hearing that poem, I was hearing so much of some of Jesus's teaching about letting the weeds and the wheat grow together. Let them grow together. And this keeps coming up for me a lot lately, and that's the weeds and the wheat within me. So the good and the bad, what I'm calling good or what I'm calling weeds or wheat or bad, and the same thing out there. And there's just such a quiet, deep, strong wisdom in these teachings. And in my own spiritual growth, one of the greatest moments was, and it was a while ago, when I realized there's no difference. Religions practiced, faiths practiced honestly with heart, there's no difference. And again, I guess that gets there's the weeds and the wheat really aren't different. And still the capitalist oppressor and the poor victim really aren't different. I sure want to make them different, but they're not.
Just following up on that, you know, when they're not different, and when we're both of them, we're also none of them. And I feel like a poem like this really is like verses on the faith mind. You know, and ultimately, to me, it points to emptiness. If I can just as easily be the sea pirate as the 12-year-old girl raped by him, then there is no self that's there.
I really like what Z said. That really hit a chord, that if I'm both of them, I'm also neither one of them. And there's a freedom in that. And this struck me like Blake's poems of innocence and experience. Take the Sea Pirate as kind of a song of experience, and the 12-year-old as a song of innocence. And they have to grow together.
We can sit together quietly for a few more minutes, and as we do so, as we come into stillness, I will share something that Thich Nhat said in 2016 when he addressed his inevitable death. This body of mine will disintegrate, but my actions will continue me. If you think I'm only this body, then you have not truly seen me. When you look at my friends, you see my continuation. When you see someone walking with mindfulness and compassion, you know he is my continuation. I don't see why we have to say, I will die, because I can already see myself in you, in other people, and in future generations. Even when the cloud is not there, it continues as snow or rain. It is impossible for the cloud to die. It can become rain or ice, but it cannot become nothing. The cloud does not need to have a soul in order to continue. There's no beginning and no end. I will never die. There will be a dissolution of this body, but that does not mean my death. I will continue always. So we'll sit in silence for a few more minutes. So I put a chant of loving kindness that a couple of us are familiar with. And it doesn't really work if we're all unmuted to sing it, because it's going to be one of those situations with the echo and we're all going to run away screaming. So I will lead us through the chant, but it's basically wishing loving kindness for ourselves, for you and whoever you is that you conjure up in your mind, and then we, for all of us. So I thought it would be a nice way of ending our practice time together this evening. And so I'll lead us through the chant, and once you get used to the melody, perhaps you can join us. Since you're not unmuted, you won't have to be shy to sing along. So I'll get us started, maybe taking an in breath and an out breath before we begin. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be happy. Thank you so much, dear Sangha. Thank you for your presence. I'm so happy that we could all come together, especially tonight. And thank you for your rich sharing and for your beautiful spirits. Thank you.